de-emphasize follower count. Instead, users are encouraged to curate pins and make connections between content. And there are scholars who have compared this to gender scripts of other traditionally feminized labor and behaviors, from operating a switchboard to working in administrative and operational roles.
Yeah, so moving back to the technical structure of recommendation systems, I want to look at Pinterest specifically and dive into some of their methods of how they provide content to users. Like I was describing before, Pinterest uses a complex veiled recommendation system that provides personalized content with the goal of captivation. This process utilizes a complex combination of opaque machine learning processes as well as more straightforward techniques. I want to explain one of the main filtering approaches used by Pinterest. So this idea of collaborative filtering is a specific method used by Pinterest to curate much of their content on the homepage specifically, and is a common method used throughout the field. Using this process, Pinterest is able to provide high quality, ranked, personalized content recommendations to a specific user. And to do this, Pinterest takes a given user, finds similar users with similar interests, and recommends their content to our original user. And that's really the structure of a lot of recommendation systems in the modern day. And this process is theoretically very interesting in that it allows for users to group themselves together in really a multi-dimensional space and create specific, almost global cultures of use. Pinterest uses this technique on the homepage, however, and we want to explore the Pinterest search page specifically. It's another personalized system that uses a much more complex combination of techniques. So on the back end, Pinterest search architecture is a complex combination of both personalized recommendation architecture I've been describing, this like collaborative filtering in the homepage, and also a textual search like Google. So the query for this information retrieval system is a combination of the user and the text they provide. It uses the technique I previously described as well as many other models layered and folded together to retrieve specific results tailored to a specific user inside of the recommendation systems. As more data is collected on a user, models balance off of each other and blend to create a more personalized system for a user. Knowing these things about Pinterest, what can we say regarding the theoretical foundations of the structure itself? Specifically, how does Pinterest search structure re-articulate user agency and individuation? So we know that Pinterest is a system like those I described earlier that works to create a you identity for a user, a different user that is like everyone else. This kind of idea of personalized captivation. But we are missing a key point in the conversation of the system, the user themselves. So how can we articulate the agency of the user within the system of control? On Pinterest, we know that the user takes a role in creating their own identity as they interact with the web page to create data. At any moment, we know that a user has an archive of past data and will move into the future to create future data. In creating this data and curating their content on Pinterest, a user makes an effort to articulate their space on Pinterest and implicitly or explicitly map their identity in this multi-dimensional data archive of Pinterest. A user situates themselves near their content peers and articulates their identity in terms of both content and other users themselves. So that they choose their identity by selecting content and situating themselves near their peers. However, we know that this process in which content is then filtered through the system and their data is used in the system has specific goals of captivation and commodification. Therefore, this recursive identity formation process, this giving data to the system and it giving you content back recursively, allows for users to manifest and perform their own identity into a personalized system that will momentarily mirror it back to them with new goals of captivation and commodification. It's like a distorted mirror that reflects us a refracted and altered version of our own self, a recursive refraction with the goal of captivation.
And we can take those ideas of agency as they apply to gender in the act of pinning. Researchers have framed pinning as a gendered practice that represents digital forms of care labor and effective labor. So we can consider pinning as the online manifestation of domestic work. So pinning a recipe to cooking, pinning home improvement to housework, pinning homeschool content to parenting. And we can also consider pinning the online manifestation of physical knowledge sharing spaces that have been traditionally feminized. So that could be space previously covered in maternal relationships, or the publicly accessible early education space of home economic classes, or the peer knowledge share represented in women's social clubs. And when we consider the users as the conduit for the connections that they're making across boards, we can see how users, and particularly female users, are using Pinterest boards to explore, construct, and broadcast their identities, using each board as a lens for different elements of their identities, whether that's as hostess or matriarch, businesswoman, teacher, friend, bride, etc.
So we were thinking, maybe not in such concrete terms about all of this, but we were definitely suspected at the beginning of this project that there would be a difference in the material that, say, Irene and I's searches would generate versus the material that Michael's searches would generate, even if we were searching the exact same terms. So if all three of us searched for homeschooling, we thought that because of our age, gender identity, other things like that, we would get different material. And so what we wanted to do is we wanted to build a tool that could allow us to kind of explicitly do that comparative work and scrape material from these individual searches and be able to do some real comparison. And so what we were trying to gather was not only the images of the pins themselves that appear on the main screen, but also some metadata behind it. So what different companies are promoting materials on your Pinterest homepage or on your search results? What are the keywords that are attached to the images themselves? That's the kind of information that you as a Pinterest user are not going to be able to see in a normal search. So this kind of like pulls back the curtain on some of that material that's readily available. But we do want to mention that Pinterest black boxes, as Michael was talking about earlier, a lot of their process. So this only tells us so much. It gives us the metadata that is, publicly available if you can access it, but it doesn't necessarily tell us that much more beyond these are the tags that are attached to these particular pins. So our purpose in developing this tool was largely pedagogical. We thought there could be a lot of use for it particularly in undergraduate classrooms, thinking about identity construction, thinking about social media and data and how those things are changing over time. So I think we're going to show you a little bit how the tool actually works. And then we're going to kind of move to some general questions that we're interested in pursuing going forward or that the use of the tool made us think about. So let's see, that's a nicer way of saying what I just said. And then I'll turn it over to Michael.
Yeah, so the goal of the tool in a lot of ways was to create some singular visualization from all these refracted images that we know contain artifacts of the self in some way. And we wanted to encourage individuals to explore that physical material by providing them the ability to download it. And then we wanted to allow users to compare their results and explore that collectively as well. So this is the process here. They enter the app, log in, and then you search something and then have the ability to analyze it and explore and download those results. This is the login page, so you enter your information there. And then this is the search page. You would search in the bar. And this is all of your information that you have the ability to download. And explore. And then this is the process of searching the images. So we would search something, click search. And this is all the platform that we created using the Pinterest API. And so you see all the searches there that I would receive on Pinterest normally, but now we've put them in this location for you to explore specifically. And this is the ability of searching a specific picture. You can see the colors, you can see the specific pin info. And then this is the analysis page, which we spent a lot of time working on. So you take your folder with all the images of your search, and you have the ability to analyze it and create some singular visualizations.